truth.
No chaser.
Welcome to Truth No Chaser. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Jay.
And I'm Frank.
And this is a shot of truth stirred with bold opinions, reversing the miseducation of the black community as it relates to health and politics.
Yes, and we have a very special guest with us today, Reverend Kenny Rice from Beulah Baptist Church. What's going on, my brother? How you doing?
Hey.
I'm good. What's
Welcome
up with
to Truth
y'all?
No Chaser.
I'm glad to be here today.
Yes, sir. And today we're going to be talking about spiritual gates, defining what spiritual gates is, getting an understanding of it, identifying what spiritual gates are, what your personal spiritual gates are, and living a normal life while establishing boundaries. So, but first, as always, we're going to do our little icebreaker. And, I mean, we call it, you know it as America's team. But since we got the Rev here today, we're going to call it God's team.
How about them Cowboys?
We're going to call it God's team, you know. So this is a very special, near and dear to my heart, very special edition of Icebreaker. It's all Cowboys edition. You ready, my brother?
No, nobody's ready.
Are you ready?
Absolutely. We've been ready. We stay ready around
Okay,
these parts.
okay. Cool. First question out of the gate. As a Cowboy fan, who is your most hated rival? What team is your most hated rival?
Ooh, that's...
Loaded question.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. I got a couple of them, but I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles because the one that's sitting beside me is an Eagles fan.
Yes, sir.
And they talk big trash in Philadelphia.
To be so relevant, so recent.
I'm telling you.
I got
it's between them and the 49ers, though.
I got you. All right, we're going to keep it.
In Philadelphia, that's the thing. These guys don't even live in Texas.
We got to keep it moving. That's what y'all told me. Y'all told me keep it moving.
Keep moving.
Right?
You're right.
So next question. All right. So you can only keep one. This is a tough one.
Uh-oh.
You can only keep one. Number 88, special. Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, Des Bryant, CeeDee Lamb. You can only keep one.
Man, I just had a Lamb jersey on Sunday, but I think Michael Irvin is at the top of the food chain with the
88s, right?
Yeah, and I would put CeeDee Lamb above Des Bryant.
Really?
Des was solid, but CD got a different kind of talent.
Special.
He's
already, yeah.
He can play outside and he can play the slot.
I think he's already 45 reception yards within his record. So it's crazy. Yeah,
he's going to surpass. He's going to surpass Des Bryant for sure.
That's what's up. Yeah, but I agree with you on Michael Irvin. Like, yeah, he sets the standard for.
Yeah, he's a legend.
There you go. Okay, good one. All right, keep him on.
Keep moving.
Next question.
I know all this.
Mother fall asleep.
Guys, I hope the audience is still with us.
Where's your favorite? Who's your favorite all-time Cowboy?
Ooh, Emmitt Smith. Gotta be Emmitt Smith. I wanted my number. I wanted my number to be 2020.
How did I not meet this guy before? Where have you been keeping this guy? Come on.
In church.
Under a rock.
Come on. He's at church.
Pull up every now and
Clearly
then.
you haven't been going. All right, last question. This one's funny. This one's going to be funny. So. All right, it's been a drought. 26, 27 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Would you curse out your entire congregation for a guaranteed Super Bowl?
Absolutely. And I hope ain't none of them watching. I hope ain't none of them watching or listening, but absolutely. The Cowboys need to get a Super Bowl under the belt immediately, as of yesterday.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Frankie.
I had to ask.
He didn't even hesitate though. He was like, absolutely.
Right.
He didn't even think about it.
In the second out, I was like, I should have asked this is inappropriate, but I had a feeling from your vibes. I've had a feeling you were going to give a good answer. Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate you. All right. Thank you for that.
You're going to be in the pulpit making the list next week.
I've been wanting to cuss this one.
That's hilarious.
Cowboys.
All right, go ahead.
Anywho, moving on to something more important. For those who may be watching or listening and do not know what spiritual gates are, can you give us a brief definition?
Yeah, so as we talk about this, I think that it's really important to define our terms tonight. But I think when we talk about spiritual gates, we're talking about those things that literally are gate holders or segues into our spirituality and our spiritual lives in many regards. And so when I think of spiritual gates, I think both in terms of physiology and pneumatology. Pneumatology just means like spiritual, and then physiology means our body. I think that there's a particular way that our body literally functions as a spiritual gate. Like our eyes and our ears are the first receptacles to that which in many regards is spiritual. Of course, we can always talk about our intuition, our discernment, or having the spirit as a way of like gatekeeping or guarding against certain energies that protect us or that alert us of certain sensibilities. But I think that is twofold. So it's physiological, but then it's also like it's spiritual, it's pneumatological. There's something that exists within each of us, the psyche, the soul, the mind, that functions as a spiritual gate. And so when we talk about spiritual gates today, I think that it's important for us to keep in mind that it's twofold, that it's not one or the other, it's both and.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be good.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be good. Anyway, all right. So that's actually go ahead. You lead off with the next question, though.
Discuss the significance of them. So me and Frankie were discussing yesterday or Monday on our call that we've heard of it, but we weren't really familiar with what spiritual gates were. So how do you know how can we word this? How do we know, or what's the way that we can recognize spiritual gate?
There you go.
How do we know for ourselves,
Yes.
like what our spiritual gates are?
Yes, if you're a new beginner, a new Christian, new
Or if
believer.
they've been compromised. Like, how do we, like, what's that feeling? Or
Yeah, so those are two very different questions, but I'll start with the latter and then work my way back to the former. So how do we know that our spiritual gates have been compromised? I think that energy never lies, and I think we have to be conscious of that, and I think you have to be in tune with your body and your spirit enough to know something is off, something has been compromised, something doesn't feel right. One of the things my dad always used to tell me when I first moved to Atlanta 13 years ago, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't seem right, it probably is not right. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. And so I think just to oversimplify it and make it as practical as possible for people, when we talk about your spiritual gates being compromised, that is a particular way of the spirit or your body letting you know that something is off in a fundamental way with whatever you are experiencing, right? And that's not just around people, but that's also experiences as well. There can be certain experiences that just don't match your energy or your aura. And it's important for you to know, one, who you are, and two, who you're not, so that you can know that this is something that's for me or this is something that doesn't serve me, and being able to move accordingly. So for those who may be wondering, like, how do I know when my spiritual gate has been compromised or my gates have been compromised? Because you can feel the shifting in your energy. You can feel the shifting not only in your energy, but in your spirit as well. There's something within you, again, intuition, discernment, spirit, whatever you want to call it. Howard Thurman called it the sound of the genuine. When that gets disrupted, when you're not you and your cadence and your energy and your vibe has changed, 9 times, if not 10 times out of 10, it is likely because there is something that has infiltrated those gates. Again, your eyes, your ears, what I would just call the human sensorium in many regards, right? What do we consider to be the gate? The human sensorium, that which you think with, that which you live with, you breathe with, right? The things that make you, you. That's how you're able to discern there's something at work here, either pejorative or positive. Something negative or positive is at work. You're able to discern that through the human sensorium. And without the sensorium, you always got a sixth sense. Outside of our 5 senses, we always have a sixth one. And that is, again, for me, I think it's intuition, discernment, spirit, whatever language you want to call it.
So, and what we, I think one of the things that made this a interesting topic for us is that we I feel like either because we don't know, many of us don't know what spiritual gates are, or we have an idea or can't really understand, put it in that context that you put it in, like the importance of them, like especially if you are, a Christian or a believer, or you are trying to follow in Christ likeness, no matter where you are in that walk. What would you say the significance of, guarding those gates or being at least conscious of those gates is?
Oh, it's very significant. Being conscious of and guarding are very important. Of course, it's important to be conscious of, but it's even more so important to guard the gates that you have in many regards. And one of the reasons that I say that it's important to guard more so than to just be conscious of, anybody can be conscious of their gates, but guarding your gates literally means that you move in a particular kind of way that proactively works and warns against people, places, things, and experiences that are coming to, in many regards, if you want to use the language, to destroy you, to debilitate you, whatever the case may be. And again, it's important to underscore that doesn't just show up in people, right? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So it is more than just, I've got some haters and I got some enemies. No, there are legitimate systems that try to depreciate the quality of life in a systematic fashion for Black and brown people in particular. right? Especially living in America. But for those purposes, I think that guarding against those experiences is of utmost importance, because we can normalize dysfunction so easily. And we can also operate out of trauma and triggers unconsciously without knowing. And if we do that, again, we're normalizing dysfunction and or toxicity in a particular kind of way that's not healthy for us. And just as much as it's important for us to practice mental health, physical health, we also have to practice spiritual health. So if that means you got to get some squares up out of your circle, then so be it, to make sure that you can continue to walk in alignment and you can manifest everything that God has for you and that the universe is asking you to do. That's a buzzword these days, this notion of manifesting, but it is real, and that comes from our spiritual gates. It's a particular sensibility that allows us to work in alignment with the spirit and with the universe to proactively create whatever God has called us to do.
Whatever God has called us to do. So now, personal question that, well, not necessarily so personal, but what do you feel of those, like, I guess, what did you call them yesterday? Rituals? Yeah. Stuff like that. Yeah. What do you feel about those, like ritual practices that people have to, because you can personalize your is what you're saying. Virtually what you're saying is you can personalize your spiritual gates. Like obviously the things that you feel like you don't need to feed your to be fed on your spirit rather. So, what do you feel about those like ritual practices that people do, like Ashley just said, sage?
Yeah.
And what do you think about stuff like that?
That's a really good question. And so I don't have a problem with those things. I think that whatever an individual has to do to ground themselves and to be their most authentic and whole selves, I don't have a heaven or hell to put nobody in. I'm not here to condemn anybody else's practices. And because I have had an opportunity to study a little bit more extensively certain ideas around philosophy, religion, and theology, I'm also very conscious of the fact that there are different religious traditions that practice different things. And then you have some individuals who like to claim that they're spiritual but not religious. And so if that's a part of your either religious practice or your spiritual practice, then do what makes you. Do what makes you whole. Do what makes you come alive. Again, I love this mystic by the name of Howard Thurman. He says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. If you burning your sage helps you to come alive and to be centered and to be whole and to present your most authentic self to the world, which in my opinion is a definition of holiness, then I think that you owe it to yourself and to the people that you walk and talk with on a daily basis to do those things to center you. Now, I'm not talking about anything that's crazy or eccentric, because some folk like to claim practices as rituals that really are not ritualistic in nature, but they do those things in a ritualistic way. But again, I think the important piece here is do what centers you and do what grounds you and allows you to come alive. And I think that's the biggest thing, especially as we look at a number of different traditions from Native Americans or indigenous religious traditions, like some of the practices that they had. And I won't get into that because I know we're on a time limit here, but some of the practices that they had included burning sage, or it included the certain use of narcotics. And again, I don't want to go too far into that, but the idea was all of life is sacred. All of the universe is sacred, like in a very metaphysical kind of way. So if you subscribe to this idea of pantheism, God is in everything. And if you believe God is in everything, then anything can be sacred. In as much as we make a sacrifice, that is something that can be considered sacred. So I think that that's an important aspect to keep in mind. Because I
definitely feel that over time, it's evident that over time things get lost in translation, right? And the people have redefined them. One of the I read a meme a while ago that said, "Y'all rather manifest than pray." Like, because people have started to use that term, right. Manifest it and it'll happen. You understand what I'm saying? And they said it's kind of like that word is kind of taken, like, replace the word prayer. Yeah. Jay has said something on the call, when we talked about this on Monday, that was interesting. When he said, when's the last time you prayed? You say you quick to want to, start, burning stuff and, but whatever you're using, are you replacing it with God? Are you, if you can, because even if you are not religious like you say you are, but you are spiritual, when's the last time you prayed to whatever God it is that you prayed to, versus like, some tantric kind of like, like practice or something like that, and I think that's I think that's worth mentioning. The differences, the whole spiritual. I'm spiritual and not religious. So I don't. While you're saying like whatever makes you, whatever grounds you. But the key thing that you say is that God is in everything. No matter, so even if you think it's the sage that's saving you, and I don't want to just keep harping on sage. I know there's other practices and stuff like that, but whatever it is that you choose, just know that the God is, and that was deep. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So if I may, there have been a lot of conversations around like this idea of manifesting, and I'm of the mindset that there's nothing wrong with that, but don't forget that faith without works is still dead. Like it requires more than just saying something, right? Scripture reminds, especially in the Old Testament, if you want something to come to pass, write it down, right? The book of Habakkuk says, write the vision and make it plain that those who read it may run, and though the vision tarries, wait. So for me, that is an excellent model of manifestation because I'm writing something, and when you write something, you are creating a covenant with the universe that this is an agreement that we are making. This is going to come to pass, right? There were certain goals that I've had in the last couple of years that I wrote down. Like every year I begin my year by writing down what my goals are. But if I only write them down and I don't work actively to, manifest them, they're not going to come to pass, right? A vision is nothing more than a dream with action to it in many regards, right? So for me, it's important for individuals to understand that, we can talk about manifesting, but don't forget that still requires you to do work. That still requires you to work your 9 to 5 until you get your hustle off the ground and it's sustainable. Like you still have to put in the work. So I think it's important for us to underscore that. So you can manifest, you can burn all the sage you want to, you can journal, you can bike, you can do yoga, you can do whatever you want. But just don't forget that it requires work. It requires hustle. And you have to be industrious about your dreams. You got to be industrious about the vision that you believe that God has given you in order for it to come to pass. So I think that's a very important point, too.
Okay. Yeah.
God is in everything.
Absolutely. This wasn't a part of the questions, but I, like Ashley said, I wasn't too familiar with the term, so Google.
Right.
So but when I Googled it, I actually, I ran across something I was kind of interested in, and I just wanted to ask your opinion on it. So it mentions the gates in the book of Revelations, Revelations 21:12 to be exact, right? And it says that it references 12 gates. Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, are these like commandments or beatitudes? Like, because it's actually these are like 12. This is my first time hearing of it. Like 12 gates to enter and exit heaven, actually, So, do you know them?
Yeah. So, the 12 gates are a really interesting concept in the book of Revelation. So the book of Revelations is what is called Johannine literature. That means that it comes from the writer who is considered to be John. So, of course, you have like 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, the Gospel of John, or according to John. And then you have Revelations, which is considered to be Johannine literature. And all that means is that it's considered to be a part of the community that was written by John. So when John pens the Gospels, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, or whoever penned it in that tradition, whoever wrote Revelations, it is considered to be in its belief a dream or apocalyptic literature, right? So it's this idea that John has a vision in the book of Revelations and writes down everything that he saw in the dream, right? For example, in Revelations, he says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and I saw the streets that were paved with gold, and the streams were flowing of milk and honey. And so John is now writing about some of the things that he is seeing proleptically in his dreams, right? And so one of those things that he talks about is a city where there are trees that have healing capabilities. He says there's a tree, or there are trees in this nation that have the power to heal, right? The leaves are good for the healing of the nation. And then he talks about these 12 gates to the city. And 12, of course, in biblical literature is supposed to be a very significant number, right? We have the 12 tribes of Israel. We have this idea of a woman who is sick for 12 long years, right? She's not 12 years a slave, but 12 years enslaved. And then in the same passage in Mark, you also have a little girl who's 12 years old who had died, the daughter of Jairus. So we see the number 12 coming alive a lot in biblical scripture and in language. And in many regards, John is playing on that, right? John is also talking about the New Jerusalem, and the beast that he's talking about is referent to the Babylons, right? Or Babylonian captivity. So when he talks about about the beast, when he talks about the new city, when he talks about the new Jerusalem, it's really like recapitulating what has already happened in history with Babylon. So after Egyptian captivity, Assyrian captivity, you have Babylonian captivity. So y'all know Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, to give you hope. And so right after that, after verse number 9, and in that context, it says you need to be comfortable in captivity for 70 years because the Babylonians ain't going nowhere. Y'all gonna be in captivity for 70 years, but after that, I'm gonna bring y'all out. That's what Jeremiah is referring to when he says, I know the plans that God has for you, plans to prosper you, not harm you, etc. So when John writes in the book of Revelations, he's almost recreating that narrative once again, right? He's saying that I see a new Jerusalem. I see a new city. And in this city, there are no Babylonians. In this city, there is no captivity. In this city, there is no oppression. In this city, there is no kind of hegemonic structures. And that just means dominating or oppressive regimes that are going to weigh down on us. Why? Because there are 12 gates to this city. You can come through these gates, right? But more importantly than the 12 gates of the city, which is reminiscent of the 12 tribes of Israel, it's also important to realize not only are there 12 gates, but there's some trees and their leaves are good for the healing of the nations. And not only that, there's some streets that are paved with gold. And not only that, there's a land flowing of milk and honey. What does that sound like? That sounds like the promised land. That's what Yahweh promised the Israelites when they were in Egyptian captivity before they got to the Jordan River and then finally crossed into Canaan, which was the promised land. So you see how all of those tropes and themes start to come together as we talk about spiritual gates in that particular context.
That was a great question,
Right.
Frank.
I thought it was something. Were you expecting that answer?
Was I expecting that answer? No. Absolutely not.
Hey, look.
I literally thought it was like a one.
I already knew that.
Right. I literally thought it was gonna be like one, such as two.
That's what I thought too.
I was waiting.
Yeah.
But I got
wasn't.
way more than I expected. Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking like when
Thank God we recorded
spiritual gates, like your eyes and your tongue,
And that's
face.
what
That's what
I
I
started
thought
with.
it was
Yeah. That's what we started
But
with.
two different things.
But in the book of Revelation,
it's something different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Oh.
But you see how he brought them all in. Though,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I see that, but I was like, yeah. So
But
door number one is
but it all kind of helps with something that's like, I guess it goes. So one of the things was like establishing those boundaries. Some boundaries, I can imagine can or should or maybe hard boundaries. Like I don't know, you just don't do that. You don't allow these things. But then some things are those relationship things, like right. Like I would always, for example, my grandmother, rest her soul, she was always big into this. You had a cross on, like a cross necklace, and Jesus was hanging on that joker. She would get at you, Jesus, and I was like, okay,
Okay.
And then so now and then I'm from the '90s hip hop. Right now I got on the Jesus piece. I took the infrared, but I got right. They like you're not supposed to make images of God, and I didn't even think about it till I'm older. But I'm like, it's just so. My question is like there's also an element of relationship. I just want you to speak to it. It's not really even a question. There's also an element of relationship. For me, my personal understanding of God is just like, okay, as I get closer to him, if I'm on a spiritual walk that's of a Christian walk, and it's not to say that, spiritual gates do or don't affect any other, belief you may have. But if I'm on a Christian walk, my understanding of Christ is, okay, as I get closer to him, that he'll make what's acceptable for me or not acceptable based on he and I. All right, now that you're with me, we don't do that, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the way I kind of look at it.
Mature.
Yeah. So if you would just kind of speak on that from your perspective there, sir.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like our spiritual evolution and journey is in many regards synonymous to our physical evolution and journey in some regards, right? Like the way that you were at 5 is not the way you are now. I think one of the writers says that when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I acted as a child. But when I became a man, when I became a woman, when I became of age, I began to move differently. I began to think differently. I began to act and speak differently as a consequence of the growth that I had experienced. And so I think it's no different with our relationship to God, Jesus, Buddha, whoever it is that you're in relationship with, right? It is the idea that as you continue to grow, as you continue to evolve and become, I think it is almost this language that is used by the metaphysician John Dewey, right? He talks about this in the metaphysics of becoming. We are never the same. even who you are in this moment is different than who you were 20 minutes ago, right? It is the philosopher Euripides who says that you can never step in the same river twice, because that river is in a constant state of flux and motion and movement. So if you step in the same Chattahoochee River today that you stepped in yesterday, you're not stepping in the same river. You're stepping in a different river. It may be the same location. It may look the same, but something on a very fundamental and different way is changed about that river, right? And so the same is true of us. We are never the same. We are uniquely shaped by the contours of our experiences, by our narratives and our realities. And so with that, as we grow in God, as we grow in the knowledge and in the faith or our beliefs, I do believe that you are held to a different standard, if you will, because I think that as we continue to manifest, as we continue to develop, and even as we come into the knowledge of God, whatever that might mean to you, if that's through reading scripture, if that's through life experiences, whatever that means to you, as you come into the knowledge of God, you are held accountable for what you know. I can't be held accountable for what I don't know. If I don't know that sexism exists, I can't be accountable for perpetuating that behavior. If I'm a white person and I don't know that racism is a social construct or a social reality, I can't be held accountable for those things. But the moment that I am aware of the fact that I am complicit in racism or sexism or classism or whatever it is, then I am accountable. I have a certain level of agency that I must use to dismantle these things, to break these things down, or at the very minimum, acknowledge that I benefit from their privilege. So it's no different with our faith walk, right? As we continue to go from glory to glory or new heights, I believe that we also have, with new levels, new devils, and we are held accountable for the way that we interact with people, and most importantly, the way that we interact with our notion of God.
New devils. That struck a chord. Because I feel like as you grow in your walk, you are faced with different things and new things. You're like, well, no, I wouldn't do this or I wouldn't do that. And then you feel convicted.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, well, is it really God speaking to me or do I just feel bad about something?
Yeah.
But I've noticed as I'm getting older, there are different things I'm dealing with now that I didn't obviously deal with 20 years ago. I'm saying, but it's hard to shake certain things.
Well, and to your point, to what we discussed when we were in preparation for the call on Monday, my idea for what brought to the table this topic was like my wife was an inspiration. My wife obviously has a relationship with Christ and prayed up, and she's a dreamer, even as you mentioned earlier. But when she watched, like when her spiritual gates would flip up, eye gates are her thing. Mm-hmm. Especially when we watch, like, you know, she can watch this, that, and the third, but when she watches a movie that's like a horror movie, one of those, like those Omen or the one with the nun,
Exorcist,
Exorcist,
or the nun, right?
The nun, and all of them right there. Mm-hmm. She'll tell you, she's like, she'll either cut it off. I can't, and if she does finish the movie, she's like, I'm not right. She can't sleep right. And she's like, and she'll say my spiritual gates are they're not fit for this, that's, that, and the third. And I feel like and what would confuse me about that was I'm like, but you know who God is, you say, like, come on, man, we just pray that, you know. But that's what alerted me to realize, no, it's a real thing. That can go back to what you said in the very onset when you define spiritual gates. It starts to prick at that connection being.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important, again, to recognize that. So as complicated as energy transference can be, or some of you all may heard people say, like, I'm not going to let certain people lay hands on me, or I'm not going to hang around, because you can transfer energy. Now, what it looks like to have a spiritual transfer, that's going to be another whole podcast session. We'll have to talk about that on another day. But energy, fundamentally, we are energy. Like, at the end of the day, we are particles, we are atoms, we are molecules, we are made of energy, and you can feel somebody else's energy if you are centered enough, if you are grounded enough, if you listen to what people are saying and even what they're not saying, you can very quickly catch somebody's vibe. And so with that, my sister is the same way. She hates watching horror movies like The Exorcist or The Conjuring, stuff like that. And it doesn't bother me.
I love Conjuring.
I can't.
I love I love that whole series. The whole series
to
is gangster.
me, like, scary movies are comical to me to a certain extent. I like suspense, I like horror, but there's a particular way in which, your spiritual gates, if you are not grounded enough, those things can affect you. And not even to be spooky, not to be mystical, that's just a reality. Like, that is a reality for some people. But I think, again, if you are grounded enough, right? My thing is, if you got the Holy Ghost, whatever that means to you, stuff like that shouldn't be able to shake you.
Right, you should be able to separate the reality from entertainment and all of that. I mean, because I think that's just black people in a whole. Your wife ain't your wife ain't, and she ain't alone with that. There's people that's watching this shit that's gonna watch the show or listen, and
like, nah.
black people will do slasher movies all day. We do the Michael Myers and the Freddys and the Jasons.
The spirits,
yeah, we don't do paranormals. We like,
it's paranoia.
We like, hold on.
Yeah, I used to watch the White Nun joint. Was that The Conjuring?
That's this part of that series.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, White Sister Act. She was over there like, I was like, where you going? You know.
So when Tiffany and I reconnected down here, and we went to go see, that was like our first date back. You know, Conjuring.
These are always fun stories.
Yeah, Conjuring. And I think she might have seen maybe like none of that. This is what 8 years ago, 9 years ago. We call it, but yeah, she might have saw like 2 minutes of it. Because like her face was in my shoulder like pretty much the entire time. Yeah, but the Conjuring is I'll tell you, Insidious is probably even worse than that.
Yeah,
same
Insidious.
I love Insidious, man. I love all of those.
I watch all of them.
I love all of those. But like again, so you know what? I'm happy that we're having this conversation, right? Because we were talking about this. So for all those people, like what's it for? Like all those people that I don't let that in my spirit and this and that. Football. Let's go back to this, because I've been told that I am not a child of God for allowing. This is good. Let's do this. I've been told that I'm not a child of God for allowing anything other than God on His day to take. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Oh boy! So I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So I heard from some.
You're back here.
College.
Here goes Jay.
Okay.
Cowboys thing had you on the road.
Yeah, Fred. Okay.
But part of the conversation was you can't serve two masters. You can't serve two gods. And I'm just like, I think some people may be slightly misinformed about what some commitments are. Even the whole notion of the Sabbath. Oh, well, technically the Sabbath was on a Saturday, right? Not a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to get into it, okay, we can go there. I think the temptation for some people is to try to over-spiritualize certain things and decontextualize them. Like you talked about the miseducation towards the beginning. Some of our people, and not just our people, but people writ large, have been grossly miseducated. And it's not to any fault of their own. I had a cousin growing up who refused to let individuals watch Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings because they were practicing witchcraft and sorcery and paganism. And I'm like, but half of Christianity is full of paganism. So like, what is the real issue here? I think it fundamentally boils down to there being some misinformation, like the idea of Halloween being the devil's holiday. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Halloween is literally hallow, which is the word respect or venerate, and Eve, which is German for eve of. Like, so it's the eve of respect and veneration on October 31st. And then November 1st is what we call All Saints Day. All Saints Day is a religious holiday where we honor and venerate the individuals who have come before us, who have blazed the trail, laid the foundation, paved the path. And so we're over here calling October 1st the devil's holiday.
Talk about miseducation. Talk about miseducation. I thought it was the nigga with the pumpkin head and all that. I was completely duped my whole life.
Jack-o'-lanterns and everything. No, but it has nothing to do with that. It really is the eve of the Day of the Dead, or All Saints Day, where we honor the relics and the saints of the church, like Mother Teresa and Martin King or whoever.
I feel horrible because I'm 42. It's not like I'm 10.
Red flipping everything.
Right. I learned today, years old. Like,
yeah, that's literally what.
So it's the real story on crack. You know?
So what you're saying is weed is good.
God is in everything.
From the earth. From the earth.
God is in everything. The Bible says the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. I hope none of my people are watching.
I cannot.
What time church?
They're gonna watch. Beulah Baptist. Right, what time is your service? I like your service.
You said you need somebody on audio.
You said you needed a cameraman to promote this. I use my iPhone. Oh my God, man.
Wow.
But a lot of the things that we have just deemed as problematic as a society or as religious communities, again, it's rooted in either control or just misinformation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to be sensitive to people's training and theologies. I don't want to offend anybody, but that's the reality. Like, a lot of what has been spewed and perpetuated has been grossly taken out of context. And we will continue to perpetuate those ideas if we don't have people who are in positions of leadership who are thinkers in many regards and who understand the importance of getting your learning what you're burning, so to speak. That's what my grandma would say.
Learning what you're burning. I like that.
I'm just sitting here in awe.
Man, who you telling? Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I feel really
Well, I think
ignorant.
we done went through the list of topics for the most part. But if we now open the doors,
Church, the doors are open.
Our intent was to, and just to, I always do like a little recap, but it doesn't certainly mean we're wrapping up. But because I'm going to go somewhere with this little early recap that I'm doing here at the moment, is that
Because I did want to ask him a question, but go ahead. I'm going to let you go.
actually go ahead.
Did we get on the common practices to usher in good energy? Did we talk about that?
No, we didn't actually.
Because I need that right now, okay?
Let's go ahead.
Let's talk about that.
So which one is this?
Some of the common practices to usher in good energy in spiritual environments.
Yeah. In spiritual environments or non-spiritual environments, I think that, again, and I've already spoken to this to a small degree, I think that it's really important to do whatever centers you, whatever brings Ashley back to Ashley, right? Whatever brings Frank, whatever brings Kenny, whatever brings Tiffany, whoever, right? Of course, whatever, our resident Eagles fan, whatever it takes to center you, and again, for you to feel like your most authentic self is what is so very important. I think that is necessary to jettison or to get rid of people, places, experiences, and things that do not serve you. And one thing that I have found to be my truth is learning how to say no. No is a whole and complete sentence. No to people, no to job opportunities that are not for you, especially to low vibrational experiences and energy. And that, in my opinion, is one of the largest safeguards against these spiritual gates, right? The ability to say no proactively and defiantly is also a way of you saying yes, because the more you say no to any and everything that's not for you, you also say yes to everything that is. And I believe in the law of attraction. I believe that we fundamentally attract our experiences. We attract the people that we are in community with. We attract the jobs that are available to us. And I know that there's a certain element of privilege to that, right? Because your resume has to be at a certain place, all of that. I get that. But on a very foundational level, we attract the experiences that we have. Now, I can also say that there's some nuance to that too, because there's some tragedies that befall people that they're just anomic activities. There's no rational explanation. But the more you say no and the more you ground yourself in your reality, I believe the more you can say yes to everything that is for you. And the more you say no to what's not for you, you open space. You create portals in the spirit and in the universe. And I think that it's also important to practice gratitude. Right? The more you practice being grateful for what you do have as opposed to what you do not have, you create space for the universe to give you more to be grateful for. This is my experience. That's my truth. And so I think that it's important to be conscious of people. I think that it's important to be cautious of the experiences that you have. And then I think it's also important to be courageous in all of your pursuits. And what I mean by that is not just saying no, but don't take no for an answer from others as well, right? As it relates to grounding yourself spiritually, be able to pursue your wildest dreams, because I promise they are attainable. You may not be able to do it by yourself, but they are attainable. Be cautious of the people, be conscious of your experiences, but then be courageous in your pursuits. Whatever you believe that you can manifest, it can be done. You may not be able to do it by yourself, but in terms of curating practices on a daily basis, that's what's important. Consistency is the name of the game. You don't have to be great, you have to be consistent. And I think that's one of the things that I learned from the Mamba, like Kobe Bryant, is every single day by 5 a.m. I'm in the gym when my opponents are still sleeping and they ain't getting up till 7. If you want to be great, be consistent. If you want to have any kind of spiritual authority, be consistent, right? Little prayer leads little power, but much prayer yields much power. However you think of power, whatever you think the end result of prayer is, that's fine. But if you don't do it consistently, you're not going to get a result. If I don't go to the golf course and practice my swing, when I go to play 12 rounds or 8 rounds or 18 rounds or holes, I'm not going to be as good as I could be because I have not consistently given it my all. So I think when we talk about actually curating practices that are meaningful for us to vanguard our safe outlets or our spiritual gates, it's important to be consistent, learn how to say no, be cautious of the people that we hang around, and be conscious of the experiences that we invite into our circles and our orbits as well. Be careful of what you attract.
That was a strong last one.
Because
What you attract.
Because light also attracts bugs. And we always got to be conscious of that. Everything that we attract is not always good. Even though it may feel good to us, it ain't always good for us.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Light. Also attract bugs.
Tiffany
Also
speaks. Repeat that sentence again.
Like
Light does what?
Light attracts
also
bugs.
attracts bugs.
And here's what I've discovered, especially as I talk about this in my therapy sessions, and I've been in therapy for the last 4 years. As you heal, you attract new people to you, but healing is equivalent to light in many regards. Light does not just bring light. Light also brings darkness, right?
Yeah.
Light can also attract bugs as well. Moths are attracted to flames. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for the light and the light's sake, right? So as you continue to heal, as you continue to sojourn, as you continue to grow and develop as an individual, both spiritually or physiologically and pneumatologically in the spirit and just in a very physical way, your growth is going to attract people. And some of those people will be good for you and some will be bad for you. And you've got to be bold enough to walk away from things that no longer serve you.
That's the key right there. Bold enough to walk away from things that no longer serve you. Because sometimes people make it feel like you're the issue. When you start growing and doing different things, they make it seem like you're the problem. So then you start questioning like, well, damn, maybe it is me.
Yeah.
But it's just because you're, okay, yeah.
And I'm going to tell y'all this. In the last year of my life, my attitude has been, it's Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care. I don't care if I offend you. I don't care if you don't like me. I am moving in such a way in this season of my life that 1, honors the God in me, and 2, honors my wildest dreams. In this season of my life, listen, I do not care what you got to say, what you think. This is the year for me to do it scared.
Right.
And I think we honor our truest selves and we honor the God in us when we're able to walk away from experiences and from people who no longer serve us. We say no to the things that are not for us because, again, even though that vision may tarry, it's going to come to pass after a while.
Right.
Like the things that you were praying for, fasting for, believing God for, manifesting, writing down, working day after day for, it's going to come to pass after a while, in as much as you stay consistent. But you've got to be able to vanguard your spirit and don't share what you are working on with everybody, right? Ooh. Joseph, our friend in the book of Genesis, learned this the hard way. He kept telling his brothers about the dreams that he had. Some stuff you need to keep to yourself. And it's not about being secretive, it's about being selective. Because everybody ain't for you. We all old enough to know that at this season in this space in our lives, like there's some family members who are jealous of you. There's some friends who they applauding you, but they're doing it from afar. Ooh, like there's some people who will watch your Instagram stories but never like your posts because they only want to see what's going to happen, and then they're not going to clap until everybody else starts clapping. Bump them. I'm not interested in them kind of people. I need some ride or dies with me.
Right.
But I've learned not to divulge all of my dreams and visions with people who I just know, based on energy, based on experiences, whatever the case may be, they're not really rocking it with me in this season. And that's okay. But you got to be able to walk away from those kind of people.
Oh, that's a whole clip right there. The whole clip right there, right? What time was that on? Make sure we get this on the first Instagram post.
I'm about to ask him something off topic.
And another thing.
That was a whole
This is the other thing that I have experienced as well. We've got to learn to stop casting people for roles they never auditioned for to be in our lives. Now, that's the biggest one for me, right? If you have not auditioned for a role, why am I trying to cast you for it? And that's professionally, that's personally, that's spiritually, whatever the case may be. Stop trying to make people something in your life and in your space that they're not. Again, because you, in many regards, by doing that, are not honoring yourself. You're dishonoring the sound of the genuine within you. You are not living into your most authentic and fullest self by doing that. Let people walk away. If you walk away from me, you were never mine to begin with. Like that's the mindset. So as we talk about practices for centering yourself and guarding your spirit, all of these are notable lessons that I think are of utmost importance for any believer, regardless of what age or stage you are in life.
I just feel like it's so much easier said than done though.
Very much so.
There are people in my life where I'll be like,
that's real.
They're not for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they ain't clapping, they ain't supporting, but I'm like, but that's my peoples, and to have fun. So I'll be like, how do you just walk away and cut them out?
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe it's not, this is me learning. Sometimes it's a change in the relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So they may still be in your life. You may not walk away, but how you deal is different.
It can change.
You know?
Yeah. And one of the hard truths that I've had to learn, and again, this is something that I've explored in therapy, is this idea that when it comes to dealing with people, you can grow together and you can also grow apart. But just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy. Right. I think that's Tupac that says that. Right. And it requires a certain level of spiritual maturity and emotional intelligence to be able to understand, Judas, you were good for me. And then the other thing too is, as you talked about, that's easier said than done. One of the other things that I've discovered on my journey is that sometimes healing hurts more than the wound itself. The journey of healing can hurt more than what happened to you itself, because then you're forced to be in a position where you said, you know what, this did happen to me and this hurt like hell. You're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for your own healing. And that's the hard part that does not get talked about enough.
Yeah, because in healing, even going back to spiritual gates still, what I've learned in my journey in healing things is that healthy healing at some point requires denial of what might be an immediate feel good.
Yep.
You know, you got to deny that immediate feel good, and that's where you grow stronger in that area, you know. So that's where the healing hurts, because, you know, even with people that I've had a hard time with, I had a horrible boundaries, still talking about the spiritual gates. Boundaries was my issue for years. And I did some looking at within. I even shared this in the brother conversation with Frank. I realized that there were issues with me in codependence. I needed whatever that person was giving me, and I would accept it, even if it was harmful, even if other parts of that relationship were harmful. So
that healing is a word in itself.
Right.
Just earlier today, actually, I had a Facebook friend that called herself blasting and divulging some personal information about someone on her Facebook, tagged him about his sexuality and stuff like that. And she just had a stroke maybe about 3 weeks ago. And then someone came up in a comment and said, sis, you need to focus on healing versus what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then that's when I learned that she had a stroke, because someone said, yeah, didn't she just have a stroke? And the person was like, I wasn't talking about physically.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a lot of people that's broken in this world where that need that healing spiritually. You know, so that's deep, man. That's deep. I was sitting here jotting down all the tattoos I'm gonna get from, because you dropped like 3 colloquialisms that's just gonna stick with me for the rest of it. And I'm just trying to figure out which one I'm gonna get. No is a complete sentence. Light also attracts bugs. One of these I'm gonna get tatted on my arm. Stop giving people parts for what roles they didn't audition for.
I love that. Yeah.
I said Ashley's gonna put that in her motivational.
I think mine was the light attracts moths, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the light. Yeah, because it attracts them.
Yeah, he added to that one.
Yeah.
That was like he remixed it. He already dropped the gem.
He said he remixed
it. He already dropped the gem, and then he was just like, and another thing,
the album version.
Yeah.
That's
what's up.
That was good.
Good. This is
that healing
really
part
man.
That's the strong part though.
Absolutely.
Because it's not pretty.
I don't even know how to recap this one, man.
Right. Because
it's a lot.
This is so
it's
information.
A lot.
If I tell you one thing,
we learned a lot.
If information is what you come to this podcast for, we're gonna start right here with this episode.
No, but I had a
but
I had a moment while he was talking, because he said it when he was going over Halloween, when he was going over the practices and things like that, and he said a lot of things that we've been mistaught. And in our intro every day, we say we are reversing the miseducation of the Black community. And when we say through health and politics, but when we say health, we're talking art, spiritually, mentally, physically. We've had shows intentionally on all of those aspects. Because we realize that, and it goes back to the name of the show. Some things are true, some things can be factually this, that, and the third, and some things can be true based on a perspective, but some things are absolute truth.
Right.
And there are some absolute truths that our people are suffering from not knowing or having the proper light. And so we intentionally seek out those who have studied, those who have dedicated themselves, and have had an understanding and revelations and preparation so that you can share that truth with our people in love.
Yeah. And it reminds me of Plato's Republic, where in this scene about the allegory of the cave, there's an individual who's been in the cave for years and they know nothing other than darkness, and they go out to the light. And what do? They don't stay in the light. They go back to the darkness because that's what they know. That's what's been pathologized and habituated within them to become used to the dark. And we're the same, right? If we see knowledge as this kind of metonym for light, rather than embrace something that might cause us to think differently and then live differently, what do? We put our heads back in the dark and say, nah, I ain't rocking with that, right? What philosophy is that? And they say, what? They teach what? Nah, I can't get with that because my Bible says, well, your Bible is a good compass and starting point, but what if the Bhagavad Gita also has truth, right? What if the Quran also has truth? And I'm not trying to proselytize anybody. I'm not trying to take anybody's Jesus away. But what I am saying is that there can be light from multiple sources, and that doesn't diminish my light. Just because the two of you or the three of you all are light doesn't mean I'm any less light, right? The sun and the moon can both shine, and they take turns. Right, that's
write
important.
Write that one down, Frank. Write that one down, Frank.
Like, it's important to think about, but a lot of what we have experienced in our communities is information. It's information asymmetry. We don't know what we don't know, and if you don't have anybody to help you to reach this place of enlightenment, then you'll never think for yourself. And that's one of the things that the philosopher Immanuel Kant says. He says that enlightenment is our emergence from self-incurred knowledge. What is knowledge? The inability to think for yourself. Many people suffer because they don't have the courage to think for themselves or to think critically and coherently about certain matters that might lead them to a greater truth. So to your point, something can be your truth, but that don't mean it's the fact.
Oh,
that's the thing. That's the thing.
And a
right
lot of
there.
people
yes,
get
sir.
stuck on their truth, and the world has to revolve around their truth, as opposed to the fact that the world revolves around the facts and not your truth, right?
I was going to say about the them, their, thous, or the LBG tree, whatever, all that whole community. Not being funny, but I'm just saying there's a fact.
Right.
There's their truth. We have to go by their truth.
It's your truth.
I ain't got to agree with your truth. It's yours.
And I respect your truth.
Yeah.
I respect
but
the truth
it's
that
mine.
you choose to live in.
And even outside of that, just in general things.
Right.
But because that goes back to a lot of the internal debates that we've had about just topics before we ever bring them to the public. It's just that that's the foundation of what we stand for. That's the true, foundation even behind the name is that, there are certain things and certain principles like that. There is a truth that is not based on a perspective. There is an absolute thing. Yeah. And my compass is always not to ever know everything, but if there's an opportunity for truth to be presented to me, I don't ever want to be on the wrong side of it because I was stuck in my own perspective, and it becomes harmful for me and everybody that I'm responsible for, so to speak. I'm gonna mess up all of your quotes. So
we need to put. People take notes. People take notes. People take notes.
The sun and the moon both be having moths, and then they go back in the caves. You know what I'm saying? They take turns.
Listen, he said the sun don't shine together
as long as we might as well shine together.
Because God is in everything.
Right.
Now he gonna take that and use that to justify a whole lot of activities that ain't got nothing to do with God.
That is funny, man.
There were so many. Yes. How can you recap this?
Yeah.
You need to put in the description, take notes.
I'm gonna keep
People
it raw.
take notes.
So listen. I'm gonna keep it raw. Listen, we wanted to have a show based on spiritual gates. Why?
Right.
Because we understood that there was a significance to them, even for those who did not know what they were, and for those who had an idea where we couldn't define them, but we recognized that there's something important about this. And if there's something important about this, one thing that is for certain, whether we know it or not, whether we accept it or not, that there is a such thing as spiritual warfare.
Yeah,
it is the warfare that matters above all things in this life. So because there's a thing called serious warfare, and we are truth no chaser, that even if it was something that we couldn't understand, we wanted to bring someone who could speak on it. And when he was speaking on spiritual gates, he defined what they are. Reverend defined what they were, the significance of them, how we know when our spiritual gates may have been compromised, and how do we get back to that peace? How do we get back to, and I like what he said, is recommending doing whatever regrounds or recenters you and brings an authentic you. Not say I have to be peaceful like Ashley, but what is the peaceful person, a godly version of myself? And he also gave us some nuggets, not only to just, he gave us some specific examples of how we have a bad outlook or not a bad outlook, but a misunderstanding of certain things. Like he used Halloween as an example, but he gave that as an idea for us to continue to seek those truths so that we are not operating off of a misunderstanding. or where we don't need to be. And that's the best that I could do for right now.
You summarize that thing up.
But I do encourage everyone to hit the rewind button and really take out your notepad on this one, because the nuggets that Pastor Reverend Kenny shared with us, they're not only good for you, but we are all in a leadership position over someone or something that God has assigned us to. So it's important, if we are presented with this opportunity to do better, know better, that we take that advantage.
Yes.
And honestly, if you a word was preached here today, but if you physically want to see Reverend Kenny Rice preach, you can come to which church again?
Beulah Baptist Church.
Beulah Baptist Church. Where is that?
In Atlanta, Georgia. We are in the West End Vine City community, which is right off of James P. Brawley Drive, close to Clark Atlanta University, Spelman College, Morehouse College, and the Mercedes-Benz football stadium.
There you go. Okay. And are there any other avenues which people could reach you? Do you do social media at all?
Of course.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram. Instagram name is Kenny_Rice10. On Facebook, Winfred K. Rice. And then the church's Instagram and Facebook platforms are Facebook and YouTube. And our handle is at Beulah ATL. That's BEULAHATL. Beulah ATL.
Beulah ATL. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to add, Ashley?
I'm still.
Yes, processing, right?
I'm still soaking it all in. I'm telling you, because somehow it always does go back to healing.
Absolutely,
being the authentic person. So that's always a journey for me.
Absolutely,
that was a good word.
Absolutely, this is good. This is. I appreciate you for coming through, brother.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me.
I don't even know whose idea this topic was, but it's awesome.
Look at Jay.
Awesome, Jay. It's yours, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Jay, man.
Yeah, I was just waiting for him to get to the website part.
Shout out to Jay, man. But
now,
anyway.
Jay thought about spiritual gates, and it's funny because at the same time we both said your name.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
we both seen his face,
did.
and I was like, "How about?" Jay was like, "I was just getting ready to say that."
That was dope.
So yeah,
that was dope. Thank you, my brother.
Good. I love to hear this.
Thank you. And if you want to watch and listen to more content from Truth No Chaser, you can always check us out at Instagram, truth_no_chaser, for all our upcoming events or our upcoming content, and just what we got going on. Ashley keeps us updated with that. We also have our site where you can jump on. That's thetruthnochaser.com. You can see all our merch, again, or future things that we have in store. And how can they see us visually, Jay?
Yes, for the visual version of this podcast, please tune into YouTube. So that is youtube.com/The Truth No Chaser.
Until next time, keep walking in your truth, Black people.